Yeah.
Okay, seeing as it is 6:15, I will call the Monday, October 3rd, 2022 regular meeting of the Gardner City Council Finance Committee to order. The clerk will please call the roll.
President Kaczynskis.
Present.
Councilor Cormier.
Present.
And Council Generalowicz.
Present.
Is anyone recording tonight's meeting? Okay. And we'll begin with item 1-1, review and approval of the meeting minutes of June 2nd, 2022 and June 10th, 2022. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we waive the reading of the minutes and approve them as written. Second.
Motion made by Councilor Generalowicz, seconded by Councilor Cormier to waive reading of the minutes and accept them as presented. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 2-1, a measure authorizing acceptance of donations and gifts for use by Parks Department. This is acceptance of a donation of a weeping cherry tree from Alyssa's Place Recovery Center to the city. We have a letter from Mayor Nicholson regarding it. Mayor Nicholson, is there anything else you'd like to add along with your letter?
No, the tree was planted in Volney Howe Park in memory of everyone in the city who has struggled with substance abuse disorders and opioid addiction and overdose and have succumbed to the disease of addiction. The tree and the memorial plaque that will be planted are being donated by Alyssa's Place.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion made to recommend acceptance of the gift.
Second.
Motion
With
made by
gratitude.
Councilor Cormier, seconded by Councilor Generalowicz to accept the donation. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 2-2, a measure authorizing acceptance of donations and gifts for use by Mayor's Department. This is in reference to the flower pots. There are new flower pots that have been placed throughout the city. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you very much, Madam President. The flower pots themselves were purchased through a shared streets and spaces grant from the Commonwealth. The flowers in the flower pots themselves are being done through sponsorships for $75. An individual, an organization, a business, anyone like that can sponsor the flowers. It's basically just covering the cost of the mums that have been planted in the pot from now through the week after Thanksgiving. So we do have approximately 50 people who have already fully sponsored those pots out of the 125 that we have. Some have come in since this council packet was posted, so we will have this back before the council again before the rest is done, but we figured we'd at least get the list started.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we recommend acceptance of the donations.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Generalowicz, seconded by Councilor Cormier to accept the donation. Is there discussion on the motion? I just have to say, I love the flower pots. I think they're great, and I'm really proud that we have them throughout the city. They're literally everywhere in the city.
Yeah.
There's 100 in the downtown area and 25 in the South Gardner Village Center. There will be signs with all the donors' names in it, but Doug Monroe, the foreman of the Lines and Signs Department, was on vacation the past week and a half. So now that he's back,
That's a lot of signs to do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've always known Doug is valuable, but when you see those things and you see him without the signs, I mean, you know that you realize the value even more.
Yeah.
Because he does a fantastic job with that. So,
Yeah.
any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 2-3, in order transferring $3,000 from Law Department assistant salaries to outside council expenditures. Mayor Nicholson.
Thank you very much, Madam President. There's a letter that's included in the packet, but there's also a supplemental letter from Attorney Flick that's here on the council's desk that will be uploaded to the packet later on and will be given to the councilors this evening as well. In consultation with the state's Ethics Commission, Attorney Flick has been directed to recuse himself from any lawsuits either represented by or with an opposing party of Attorney Scott Joseph Graves in the city of Gardner due to a tumultuous and contentious relationship that they've had over the past several years, including some claims that Attorney Graves has made publicly on social media platforms. Due to those reasons, the Ethics Commission has cited Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 23B, subsection 3, saying that due to that conflict of interest, Attorney Flick must recuse himself. In those matters, there are two matters in which Attorney Graves is counsel to parties that are against the city. One is Karen et al. Versus City of Gardner. That's a appeal of a state fire marshal's and fire department citation that was given following the annual use occupancy certificate inspections that must be done by the fire department. And then again, the state's fire marshals got involved as well. That's the et al. In that case. And then Allen Zong v. Gardner Board of Appeals et al. That is a appeal of a zoning board of appeals decision in housing court. So I'm putting up a $3,000 transfer to get this started, just like we did with the other time we've had to get outside legal counsel for this matters. We'll start with 3. If we need more, we'll come back and fill it after. But when the council voted on the budget, they approved a $60,000 line item in the budget for the Assistant City Solicitor's salary line item. However, the compensation schedule ordinance was approved for $35,000, so there is some wiggle room in that line item that's there, since the budget and the compensation schedule do not match the amount that was approved in there. So there's about $25,000 in the Assistant City Solicitor's salary line item that's currently not expected to be used this year. So that's where this funding is coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we recommend transfer.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Quimmer, seconded by Councilor John to recommend the transfer. Is there discussion on the motion?
I have a question for the mayor. Is there may not be this time, any estimate of what the cost, final cost could be for these cases?
I have asked Attorney Petrini's office, who's going to be our outside counsel on this, to provide a full budget for that. I have yet to receive that, which is why we're starting with $3,000, which is just a basic amount that you normally have for at least starting litigation. Once that full budget is received, if the council would like, I'd certainly be happy to show that to the council. However, that probably be a session, as those litigation budgets show strategy and what each step of that strategy would cost, and the total amount there too that can be shared with the council.
Well, if you can provide it to the council when they have
Well, we
it.
did see their hourly rate.
Yes, the hourly rate is in the engagement letter.
The engagement letter,
Yeah,
3,000 won't go very far.
correct.
Yes. And we can do executive session if it's necessary at
Yeah,
that time.
if it's a pleasure of the council, I'm happy to share that.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item number 2-4, in order to raise and appropriate $46,143.61 for the mayor's unclassified department operating expenses budget for fiscal year 2023. We have a letter in packet from the mayor regarding the budget. We also have State Representative John Slavik here, and we have Sean Hayden here from Gamma. Mayor Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Back in April of this year, Attorney General Healy's office announced a settlement with several different opioid manufacturers in a case that several states across the United States were involved in due to the ways in which opioid manufacturers contributed to the rise in the opioid epidemic nationwide. One of the decisions that was made in Massachusetts was that a certain amount of the settlement funds, approximately $210 million of the $525 million settlement, are going directly to cities and towns in Massachusetts to use for overdose prevention and addiction treatment purposes. We are restricted in that we can only use those funds for that purpose. Gardner is slated to receive $526,633.18 from the settlement in the form of 18 payments made between now and 2038. So one of the things that we've been doing lately is my office has been in contact with State Representative Zlotnick's office about forming a regional collaborative for the use of these funds. While Gardner is slated to get that amount, which equates to between $30,000 and $50,000 per year as it fluctuates with the payments, several of the other surrounding communities are receiving a lot smaller fund from this settlement, so they really can't do much on their end. So by pooling our resources together, we're able to work with Gamma to contract and basically hire a full-time employee as a recovery support navigator, thank you, John, who will work with our overdose cases in the city and really help improve the outreach work that we can do here in the region, with Gardner being the lead party to this regional effort. And both Reps Lotnick is here to talk about the other towns, as many of their select boards have already approved the matter on their end. And Sean, of course, if you have any questions on the services that would be provided for this, included in your packet is the payment schedule, so you can see how many payments Gardner will be receiving and at what amount. That is highlighted in pink when you look at the list of communities throughout the state, but you can also see the other towns within the region and how much they're getting compared to what Gardner's getting. The guidelines for the money from the Attorney General's office are on here, the presentation on how the money can be appropriated, and the draft contract that the city would be using with Gamma is all included in your packet for this evening for consideration. It's something that I think would really benefit the community, and in speaking with the Attorney General's office, we're actually one of the first communities region to be looking at some type of work like this. So it's just neat to see us, setting the trend for other communities in the state to follow with something like this and really making a positive impact in the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Kristen. Sean and Ms. Lutnick, if you'd like to come forward, speak on the item. This will be on our city council agenda later on this evening. And so the committee will report to the city council everything that you have to say this evening.
So as Mayor Nicholson stated, we saw the settlement released earlier this year and the details of how those payments would be released. We immediately started looking at what communities in the area, based on our anticipated and assumed caseload would be, and also the dollar figures that those communities would be getting. One of the, I think, challenges with this settlement is that it's spread over so many years, and the dollar figure that any participating community is receiving year to year fluctuates quite a bit, which I think makes it challenging for a municipality to incorporate that into their own operations, which is why we are talking with Gamma about handling the funds for this consortium and managing the program. The towns that we are in discussions with, including in this initial group, are Gardner, Winchendon, Templeton, Ashburnham, and Westminster. Winchendon, Board of Selectmen took a vote last Monday to allow their town manager to enter into negotiations. Templeton is slated to do so next week, and Ash West have voiced interest, and we're working out the details of next steps with them. The towns have a little bit different process than the city of Gardner will go through. That takes a couple additional steps. That's why this is going as it is. But that is where the current state of this is now, and what we have planned.
Massachusetts Department of Revenue regulations require that cities appropriate the funding as a supplemental budget. So while the funding is coming from this specific resource, when the money gets deposited, it goes to the general fund, but it still has those restrictions. So because it's not set up as a special revenue account yet, which is in the works through state legislation and policy work, right now it has to be voted appropriated as a separate line item in the budget by the city council. So that's why the process is what it is now.
We anticipate it changing as this goes on. The legislation is a bit behind the initial tranche of payments.
Thank you. Sean, you want to speak to the services?
Sure, yeah, so Recovery Support Navigator is a bachelor's level clinician who's specifically skilled in community outreach and, more importantly, navigating the kind of myriad systems that are part and parcel with the substance use industry. Unfortunately, it's a pretty disjointed system of care, and often for people who are kind of, families in crisis and people in crisis, knowing how to navigate that system of care is really challenging. What's step one, what's step two? And there's not a real good roadmap for people to follow. So having a clinician at the city's disposal, whether they approach, first responders or the health department, where people reach out and say, what do I do for my son, daughter, husband, wife, whatever it may be. Having a clinician to call on who knows exactly what the first step should be and the next step should be and how to plan down the road for these things is a really important asset. This is a trend amongst larger cities throughout the United States where they're starting to employ clinicians, but for a lot of smaller towns, that's just not feasible. They don't have the infrastructure to have substance use professionals, under their city departments, and the cost is prohibitive. So this was an opportunity to kind of get our local region together and offer this service to a group of communities, and then share the cost burden across that consortium of towns that's been put together. And realistically, what you're getting is you're getting one FTE, but in practice, what that'll look like is you're getting access to our entire roster of support navigators. So that allows us to cover more hours with more people and match people better by fit. So if someone prefers to work with a male clinician or a female clinician, we can match them by their, kind of stated desires to do that. or by age, or whatever it may be, so that, they can get help from the person that they identify with. These navigators now exist. They do a lot of work in communities. They do a lot of homelessness outreach. So they go out to unhoused people where they're at. They meet people at their tents and wherever they may be, and are able to connect those people to get them insured, get them access to services, and ideally get them out of unhoused situations. They do a lot of work around housing and employment, in addition to access and treatment.
Questions, comments from the committee?
So it won't be a particular individual, even though it is a position, but whoever happens to fit on that given situation.
Correct.
But it would be an employee of Gamma. It would not be a city site. It's just a contractual service, basically.
Correct. That's right.
We went that route because obviously that's easier than trying to incorporate it, especially with multiple municipalities involved. It's much easier for everybody to contract with Gamma than say everyone contract with the city of Gardner or what have you.
Right.
This makes it much cleaner, and we hope will cut down on some of the paperwork for the participating communities.
And I do know we've done lead community operations in the Board of Health over the years for various things. It's a cost-effective way, I think, of doing it. I'll make a motion to recommend acceptance of this order or this order, passage of this order, I guess.
Motion made by Councilor Corbett, seconded by Councilor General, recommend passage of the order. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 9-1 is a notification on status of funding from the American Rescue Plan Act. Mayor Nicholson has provided us with some information regarding a breakdown of the expenditures that have been made from the funds we received from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, and it was upon our request for this as well. Would you like to add anything?
The only thing that I'd like to add that's not listed in the letter because I ran out of room on the page is that of the COVID tests, you'll see that it's listed as $432,214.85. $315,000 of that was reimbursed by the other towns. If you remember back in about March, it was in February and then again in March, a lot of the area towns were purchasing at-home COVID test kits through the state contract that was newly formed at that time when at-home testing kits were not available yet at that time. So since Gardner had more of our ARPA funding available to us, we purchased them up front because the minimum order for a test was a pallet, which included 76,000 tests. So what we did was we took in orders from other communities to Gardner. We purchased them from the state contract, and then they reimbursed us for their part of the pallet that they took. So we were regional collaborating with about 13 other communities on that one. So that is, looks a little higher than it actually is for what Gardner was using. We were reimbursed that money there, but what it is we have to wait for the feds to clear that back into the ARPA account before you'd see that accounted for again in our bottom line number. I expect that to probably take place before the November 1st federal fiscal year beginning, but it hasn't been done yet. So the balance that you see of about $1.9 million, that'll go up by about $350,000.
I assume that money is going to be restricted to the same timelines, though, even though we're getting it back.
Yeah.
We've got 400,000 for economic facade improvements.
Yes.
That's just beginning.
It began in June this year. We have 8 that are currently in the process. However, it's a reimbursement grant. So we have to wait for all of those projects to be done before we give them the funding. Boucher Funeral Home, 88 Main Street, 25 Main Street, those are all just examples of those recipients. Mainly the thing that's taking the longest in getting those back is that roofs are included in facade improvements, and it's just finding a roofer to do the work with the schedules that are currently being done.
And the only other question I have is the police cruisers. Looks like they purchased 1 out of 3, maybe.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a shortage of everything, like.
100%. Yep.
I'll make a motion to recommend placement on file.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Corner, seconded by Councilor General to put the notification on file. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed no. Motion passes. Item 9-2 Notification of independent auditors report FY 2022 single audit, no findings. It's pretty self-explanatory as what that is. It's pretty exciting as well. Mary also included a letter with, along with some information about the audit, and if you wanted to add anything else, Mary Wilson, but it seems like it's pretty
Just that the single audit is just our federal grant funding that we received in the past year. So that's only the federal grant funding. The other financials of the city are done in a full audit that's conducted annually, that's actually just finished last week. So the auditors are doing their review after seeing all the documentation last week. We expect that to be in by the end of the calendar year. But again, this single audit, second year in a row that we've got no findings in that. If we get 3 years in a row, then we get put on a different schedule on the federal government side. Department of Treasury says if you have a finding, you have to go every year until you get 3 years in a row with no finding, and then it's once every 3 years. So it does save us in the long term to not have a finding.
It's useful for a financial department.
Yeah.
No pressure next year, though.
I know.
I make a motion, we recommend placing this on file for the council.
Motion made by Councilor Narlock, second by Councilor Cormier to recommend placing an application on file with the council. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Is there any new business? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Councilor Narlock, seconded by Councilor Cormier to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Meeting is adjourned.